So this was Main Street Covert.
This was the first store in town was built right here by Bradshaw's. On the corner. And then E.J. Jones built a store, and then James Pusey had one on the corner down there.
Sometime back in
and
there.
the lights for the gas station and everything are right in there. And,
oh, really?
I want to say the above tanks. The biggest it ever got was probably 150 people.
When did it peak at?
It would have peaked at roughly World War II, yeah.
And then just the railroad?
The lack of a railroad building through, and then the lack of a paved road to the community just killed it. There is no reason for people to be here, and then they could be mobile and go to Osborne, Natoma, Waldo. So it's too bad.
After the first high school built, the two-story high school, it housed the high school and the grade school. And when it burned, Covert had nothing.
So
they built a separate grade school here, and then the high school on up here.
It's a beautiful building. It's too bad they never could really find a use for it, because like nowadays, hunting lodge, B&B, something.
No chalkboards or...
They stripped everything out, unfortunately. Did have a tin ceiling, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
John Locke, after high school here, went to 4 years at Fort Hays State University, got his degree, came back and started teaching at Covert, and then he also became the head basketball coach at Covert. And after 11 years here, he went to Natoma High School and taught girls and boys basketball. Then for 10 years in Stockton, and then came back to Natoma. By the end of his career, he had won 731 games and is the winningest high school boys basketball coach in Kansas State history.
And in that 25-26 season, they weren't going to fill the team because they didn't have a coach.
Yeah, 1925-26, the school board couldn't afford to hire a coach, so they told the team, we're just going to, let you play a couple of games and just to practice. And John Locke, as the only senior, went before the board and said, hey, what if I coached the team? Would that be okay? And they said, sure, you don't have to pay you. We can just coach and play. And he coached and played them to the only appearance in the Kansas State tournament that Covert ever went to. And they are still the smallest school to ever make the state tournament.
I still see the town.
And that's part of the reason for the book, obviously.
Yes, yes.
This was where you grew up, where?
Yeah, well, yes. I don't see it like this. I see it a town.
Vibrant town, everybody around.
Grandson asked me how it got to be a ghost town.
Grandchildren will do that.
And yes, he was 19 at the time, old enough to ask those kind of questions, and I couldn't answer him, and so he said, well, Grandma, why don't you do a book? Okay. And that's where it went.
3-4 years later?
Yep.
What's the title of the book?
Ron?
Covert, Kansas, Evolution of a Ghost Town. Yeah.
The Kazers. I got to ramble a little bit with this story because
that's fine.
I don't get into it till after I started. The story of the Kazers fascinated me when I was a child, 10 years or so old, and I remember a Sunday afternoon drive into the country. We ended up at the cemetery, and that was the first time I had been aware of all of those graves in the same spot, with the same name, with the same death date. So I asked questions of my parents, and of course Dad, he was the one that remembered, pointed off to the east, that's where the Kazers lived, and said that they'd all died in a fire under suspicious circumstances. Well, that's what I knew about it. But then when I got older and into historical research and decided to find out a little more about it, I didn't It's a lengthy chapter. It's just fascinating, and it's still a tragedy.
Basically, they found the tasers on May.
On May 31st, is that what? 31st. 1920, yeah.
1928, and they were found, they first thought they just died from the fire.
Right. And then talk convinced the authorities to open up the graves, and they found that it wasn't just a fire.
And then the story kind of ends with a suicide.
Yes. The man that was charged with killing his brother's family, his brother and his family, was charged with the murders, and when he was getting ready to go to trial, he himself died by his own hand.
And then the case just basically remains an unsolved mystery.
Unsolved mystery.